Well, good morning, everybody. This is Bill Cloud, and this is On This Day. Today is the 17th day of the month Adar. And it was on this day in the year 66 AD that the historian Josephus arrived to assume command of some insurgent Jewish forces in the Galilee, and consequently helped save the local Jewish population from attack by non-Jewish forces. 2 months later, the official outbreak of the Jewish rebellion against the Romans began, and so then eventually it was this same Josephus who recorded for us the details of that revolt and its terrible outcome. Now, there have been times when God instructed His people to go to war with their enemies, and in those times we see that Israel has prevailed. But the Bible also lets us know that there have been times when His people went to war without His instruction and they were defeated. One such account is immediately after the people of Israel refused to enter into the land of Canaan after hearing the evil report of the spies. And of course, that was in direct defiance of God's instruction. And so as a consequence of the refusal, an awful plague swept through the camp and it killed thousands. Only then did the people decide, well, let's go to war and let's fight the Amalekites and the Canaanites. But to that, Moses had this to say: "Do not go up, lest you be defeated by your enemies, for the Lord is not among you. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword, because you have turned away from the Lord. The Lord will not be with you." So unfortunately, these people decided to resist the Lord's command yet again and were consequently slaughtered in battle. It seems to me that the Jewish revolt of the first century was another such time when God did not instruct them to go to war, because the outcome of this particular revolt had already been determined about 30 years prior, when the Messiah warned that Jerusalem would be surrounded by her enemies and the temple buildings would be destroyed and people would be scattered to the four winds. And so then His instructions to those who saw these events beginning to take shape was not to fight, but it was to flee. So it occurs to me that it's possible anyway that we may be facing some similar circumstances in our day and time. There are wicked forces at work and they seem to be prevailing. And so it might be that things might turn out so well, or might not turn out so well, I should say. Why are all these things happening though? Probably for the same reason that bad things happened to God's people in times past. At large, God's people were refusing to walk in obedience. And so as we see wicked schemes and plans developing, some people in the body have chosen conventional means to combat these things. They'll employ political methods or otherwise. And while I certainly understand their passion about these things, particularly those things that are political, it needs to be pointed out that if we truly are in the last days, we're in a spiritual war, and we're not going to win a spiritual war through conventional means. Paul told us this in 2 Corinthians chapter 10. "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds." So what we're facing in this day and time is not something that can be overcome with ballots and bullets and bombs. It must be, by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony. And it must be with the commitment that our lives are secondary, that we are going to follow the Messiah even unto death. And realize that's a very sobering thought, but it is one that we seriously need to consider and embrace due to the times in which we live. But even though that sounds pretty sobering, as I said, there's still some good news in all of this, because the Messiah said in Luke chapter 21, "When these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near." And so then I will leave you with this thought. Instead of focusing on how to combat these things through conventional methods, at least, what our emphasis is, perhaps we should be emphasizing the need to look up. That is, to lift up our head and focus on the author and the finisher of our faith. Because all of these bad things that are happening around us are signaling that our redemption is at hand. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Shalom.
Like what you're hearing? Become a Bill Cloud Premium Partner to watch or listen to hundreds of hours of teachings and resources on demand. Go to BillCloud.com/subscribe to start watching today.